Oh, hello and welcome to What Are We Talking About with Jamie Jakes. I am him, and I was going to do a mock draft Superflex, mock draft recap that I was just a part of, but I just got a chime on my phone that Stefon Diggs just got traded to the Texans. Let's talk about it. So it's true. I'm literally just sitting here in my studio in my house and was about to do a Superflex mock draft recap that I was a part of. I'll still probably do that, but I got to react live to this Stefon Diggs news going to the Texans outside of Buffalo. This is not a massive surprise that Stefon Diggs is being dealt. He kind of, is a bad character person. Everyone kind of knows that about him. He's a little bit of a pain in the ass. And it's not always, the juice isn't always worth the squeeze at the end of the day when you have that guy in your locker room, even though he makes incredible plays in the football field. Same thing happened to him with his Vikings experience. He kind of outlasted his welcome, and they kicked him out to the curb. Unfortunately, the Vikings got a great draft pick with Justin Jefferson out of it. So they won that one. And I'll be interested to see what the draft picks are coming out of this one that the Bills end up receiving in return for Stefon Diggs. I imagine the Bills are definitely going to be going wide receiver, probably taking a couple in this upcoming draft. I believe so. This will leave a hole in the Buffalo receiver room. So they have Curtis Samuel on the roster. They have Khalil Shakir, two kind of slot guys, which are great for Josh Allen. I would say on the Bills side of things, the number one winner for this will be Curtis Samuel. Number one loser, if you want to call it that, will be Josh Allen. But, he gets his points from the running game anyway, for the most part. So I wouldn't be super concerned about his futures as a Buffalo Bill fantasy football wise. They're going to have to make a move for wide receiver. I would say this is also definitely a massive win for Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox, who is still on the football team. I would expect both of them to climb up in ADP rather quickly. Not going to make too big of a difference for guys like James Cook in the running back room for the Buffalo Bills, but I gotta believe the Bills are going to be taking one or two wide receivers in this draft. We're getting information as I'm recording right here, tweeted 6 minutes ago from Adam Schefter. Bills are finalizing a trade to send four-time Pro Bowler to the Houston Texans for draft pick compensation, including Ian Rappaport 2 minutes ago, including a second round pick from 2025. So they didn't even get like a first rounder for him. He's still got a lot of juice left in the tank. This is not to disparage Stefon Diggs' talent at all. He still has a lot of juice left in him. He's just a massive pain in the ass and locker room issue. After a couple years, he always kind of outstays his welcome, like I already said. On the Texans side of things, it's going to be really harmful, I think, to Tank Dell and to Nico Collins. I was drafting Tank Dell a lot at his ADP. I'd expect him to fall down a tad, and Nico Collins was already being overdrafted. Tank Dell was the number one target there in Houston for CJ Stroud when he was healthy. Nico Collins really blew up after Tank Dell went down with his injury in week 13. I've done a whole video about that. I'll probably link it right here for you to watch that video. But this obviously changes a lot. Obvious massive win for CJ Stroud, massive loss for anybody who's in the Houston Texans organization, or the Houston Texans division, rather. I think Pat McAfee is going to be pretty upset. He's about to go live here in about an hour, and I'm sure this is what they're going to open the show with. This is pretty crazy stuff that we're talking about here. Houston Texans are trying to win now. They're investing in their superstar rookie quarterback because they know they have a short time frame 5 years in total, including last year after they signed him to the 5th-year extension, where they'll have him for cheap on the roster on a rookie contract. And they are automatically, they were already Super Bowl contenders going into this year with all the draft capital that they have and all the talent that they already had on the roster. This is going to be the number one receiver room in the NFL without question. So just to give you an idea, these guys are all going in the second round. So top 24, top 30 picks in fantasy football at the moment, just to give you an idea of kind of their skill level. The real question is who is going to be wide receiver 1 over there? Because we've seen quarterbacks we've seen quarterback support to number 1, top 12 wide receivers, top 15 wide receivers in the league. It happens in Philly. It's happened in Miami at the same time. So I would expect CJ Stroud to be able to maintain 2 top 12 wide receivers. I think you trade for Stefon Diggs to make him your number 1 target. And if you don't want him to be your number 1 target, you're going to hear about it. And that's kind of why Stefon Diggs is leaving Buffalo at the moment. Hilarious, by the way, to see all the drama and all the controversy last season with Stefon Diggs. He was obviously upset. And then he gets on Twitter. He's like, no, everything's cool. We're hugging it out with Josh Allen in the facility. Everything's fine. Roses and sunshine here in Buffalo, New York. I think we all knew that was total bullshit. And this kind of confirms it. The Bills, despite him being an absolutely spectacular talent on the football field, even at his old age, is willing to basically send him off for a next year's day 2 pick when they have a superstar quarterback under contract and they're trying to win a Super Bowl right now. So this is telling me that Stefon Diggs was such a pain in the ass in the locker room that the Buffalo Bills were like, I don't care how good he is on the football field. Get this guy the hell out of our facility. Send him to Texas. I think we all kind of were expecting him to play with his brother for the Cowboys, but at least he'll be a little bit closer. I am recording here from the actual Dallas, Texas, not Arlington. I'm recording here from Dallas, Texas. Houston, by the way, about 3.5-hour drive from here. It's a big old state that we live in. So they're not going to be hanging out too much on the weekends, but at least they are a little bit closer, and he's going to be in a little bit better weather in his old age playing down there for Houston. So in recap, fantasy football wise, I would say CJ Stroud, a massive winner here. He's going to have 3 bona fide, they should be number 1 receivers. One of them is going to be the odd man out. And honestly, what it's probably going to end up being is 3 good best ball receivers, because someone's going to pop off every single week. But having these guys on your roster and deciding who's going to pop off, I think it might be a little bit difficult. Granted, they're going to score more touchdowns, and more touchdowns bring, obviously, fantasy football points. So it is good to that aspect for everybody in the offense of the Houston Texans. I think this move kind of makes sense for Houston. I don't know. No one can handle his personality, right? I think Stefon Diggs has seen good leaders every situation he's been in. Well, I guess maybe I would say Sean McDermott was a good leader in Buffalo. Maybe had some questionable leadership in Minnesota with what he was working with at the time. I know Stefanski in the Cleveland Browns organization has struggled with diva receivers himself, so much so that he's like, only give me guys who flip the ball to the referees like Amari Cooper and jog off the field after a 75-yard touchdown. So this is a massive move and something I don't think a lot of people saw coming. I guess the question I'm left with is, who is the number 2, or who is projected to be the number 2 receiver in Houston? I would say probably Tank Dell is now in terms of target share. They're going to have to give Stefon Diggs the ball a lot. And now they have kind of 2 deep threats with Nico Collins and Tank Dell. And Stefon Diggs, I would assume, would be playing kind of underneath for the most part, even though he is a, bona fide deep threat himself. He can do it all. He is, a superstar himself. But he's more of a yak guy, especially at his older age. He's much better at kind of finding the hole in the zone than beating man-to-man coverage. Didn't see a lot of separation from him last year. Didn't really matter because he had a great quarterback throwing him the football, and he had a lot to do with the football after he caught it, which is why I think he's a great fit for the Houston Texans offense. And it'll be great for 2 years. And then he'll start complaining to CJ Stroud that he's not throwing the ball enough. And then he'll be too old. He'll probably just get cut and retire. So with this move, contract-wise, Stefon Diggs is still under contract through 2027. So I would not expect the Texans to even have to re-sign him, which is crazy that they just had to give a second-round draft pick for him. He is currently in his 32nd year, so he'll be 32 this year. So the Bills, if I'm reading this correctly, the Bills will save $5 million with this trade, and will have a pretty substantial dead cap, which I'm sure was negotiated between the two sides. So we will see what that all amounts to. But Stefon Diggs is still under contract through 2027, and he will be 34 at the time. So look for the Texans to cut Stefon Diggs after the 2025-2026 season to save $18 million and get a guy who's a real pain in the ass off the roster. But he's not going to be a pain in the ass for the first 2 years, because that's just kind of how Stefon Diggs rolls. This is going to be a developing story. When you watch this, you'll probably know more than me. So leave the updates with the details in the comment section for me, and let me know who you think is going to be the number 2 over there for Houston. My name is Jamie Jakes. Please subscribe to the channel. Thank you, and good night.